Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. If you see a crocodile, don't forget to scream. Row, row, row your boat gently to the shore. If you see a lion, don't forget to roar. Hello, darlings. I am Cassandra George Sturgis. Welcome to my channel, Authentic Beauty Handmade Dolls and Crafts. In this video, I am going to show you how to attach the ears to your mermaid sock doll and how to paint your sock doll's eyes. Thank you so much for watching. The first thing you're going to do is trace the pattern onto a pair of socks. And then you are going to sew around the markings on the doll's sock. Once you have sewn around the pattern, you're going to cut it out. Once you cut out the pattern, you are going to make a small slit in the back of the ear. You're going to stuff it gently with Mountain Mist or Morning Glory fiber fill. And then you're going to make the letter C around the ear and sew around the letter C, the circumference of the ear, and this will give it a little bit more definition. Now, once you finish sewing the doll's ear, you are going to ladder stitch it to the side of her face. General rule of thumb is that the top of the ear should line up with the corner of the eye. But again, this is a doll, and I think you should line the doll's ears up so that it feels right to you. So as you can see in the video, I have stuffed the ears, and now I am going to ladder stitch the opening closed, and I am going to then use the part of the ear where there's a straight line. I'm going to ladder stitch that portion to the side of my doll's face. Now my ears tend to be too big for most people's taste, and that's okay. I like big ears because I like big earrings, and I feel like if I am going to take the time out of my day to make a special pair of ears for you, I want the world to see those ears. So I just tend to like, animated features like lips, nose, whatever I do. I mean, what's the point of putting all that work into it if nobody's going to see it, right? I am using a brown Sharpie marker to trace the C around the circumference of the ear on the inside, maybe about a ½ inch in. Now guys, I don't know how to count in terms of inches. I'm just eyeballing that. You know what feels right to you. And so anyway, I'm doing it with a brown pen, Sharpie, which I think is a nice color match. So make sure whatever color that you use is a color that you don't mind being shown, or you can use a color that with one of those invisible pens that it dissolves over time, or a chalk, something that goes. You don't want to use something that will not disappear or does not match the doll's face on the ears, because it will show up. I am now ladder stitching the doll's ear onto her face, and like I said in previous videos, you just need to make one ear perfect and then line the other ear up with the ear that you have already sewn onto the doll. I used to try to spend all my time trying to line them up together and then sew them. Now when I think back on that, I don't even understand why I did that. So just make one ear perfect and use it as a guide for the next ear. Now guys, in future videos, I am not going to go over features that I have already covered, like the ears, the lips, or the eyes. The only time I will cover a technique is because I have not covered it in a previous video. So what I will do is just attach a link in the videos and say I have already made this, and you can just click on the link above in order to create this feature. And this way we can move forward with the different types of dolls and features and patterns, because when I am recording, it's a lot more stressful for me in terms of making a doll and making sure that you can see and that I can see, and it gets really complicated, as opposed to if I was just sewing and not worrying about recording. So if I'm doing a new technique, I'm going to definitely do a DIY on how I did that particular technique. If it's something that I have done before, I'll just show you like the new pattern or the new hairstyle. So this way we'll have more fun and we'll get to more dolls. Now, as you can see in the video, I am using gesso to paint the inside of the doll's eye, to also paint her eyelid, because I'm going to put eyeshadow there. And the purpose of gesso is to make the surface hard so that when you paint it, the paint does not seep through the fabric and it has a nice hard surface. So I am generously placing my gesso. I allow it to dry overnight, and I think I'll put like 2 or 3 coats on this sock doll, because this material is very porous and stretchy, and I needed it to be very hard to hold the clear coat glaze and the colors and all the things that I was going to do to this sock doll. So make sure that you put gesso on every portion of the doll's eyes that you plan to paint. Now, after my gesso dries, I like to mix my white paint with clear silicone because it gives it more texture. And what I'm going to do is paint the iris of the doll's eyes. And I'm going to let this dry overnight, because the silicone and the paint is a very thick mixture added on top of the gesso, which I've already let dry. And this way you'll have a really beautiful surface, and you can actually write and paint on the surface. So after the iris of the eyes dry, then I go ahead and I begin to paint. And I like to wait at least an hour between each layer so that the layers can float and have a more etheric appeal. I am going to take you step by step on how I paint my cloth doll eyes. This is my go-to method, and this is how I paint most of my doll's eyes. The first thing I like to do is paint the pupil, which is black, and the pupil will leave the limbo ring, and the limbo ring is a symbol of health and beauty, and it usually fades when a person ages or when they are in poor health. And studies show that when they show the same picture of a person with and without a limbo ring, 90% of the population always select the person with the limbo ring as being more attractive. Then I place a cross in the middle. This just gives me a guidance, and then I'll put an X in the middle of that cross. But usually I use one color. Then after that, I'll take my other color and my highlight color, and I'll put like a line in between all of the little triangles. After I do that, I'll take the 3D. I like to take 3D paint to make the pupil, and then I'll use 3D paint to create the catch lights, which is like the reflection in the doll's eyes, which make it look a little bit more alive. And then I like to use pink, like a baby pink paint, and I like to put it in the corners on the inside and the outside and at the bottom, give it that pop of color and make the doll look more alive. And then my favorite, which is glitter. A doll eyes without glitter is not a doll eyes, in my opinion. And so I'm going to show you how I am now painting Geraldine's eyes. Like I said, I was having difficulty filming and making a mistake with her eyes, which was going to be a very costly mistake at this point because I had put so much work into her. So I had already painted her sclera, and I had already, used that beautiful jelly bean pink paint around the rim of her eyes, and everything was already dry. I used a pencil to kind of give me a guideline, and now I am painting the iris of her of Geraldine's eyes. And I did not use the black paint because, like I said, it was just so risky. I typically paint my doll eyes separately. Like, for example, when I made the doll's eyes out of hot glue, I also use pearls, I use the dish towels, I use cardboard, I use acrylic, I use a variety of methods to make my doll eyes, and I usually change them, to see which ones I like best. But when I'm painting directly onto the doll, I do not have that option, so I wanted to reduce my chances of making a mistake. So I'm painting Geraldine's irises, and I think I used maybe 2 coats, and I let them dry, and then I went ahead and used my very simplistic method above, where I put the cross and the X, and I like to use 3 similar colors. Like, for example, if I was going to use a copper, a bronze, and some type of brown, like it would be, dark, medium, and light, of shades in the same family, and then, for the markings on the inside of the eye, and then I would make the pupil the iris any color that I was, that suit my fancy. So this here, I'm using the teal. I love teal, and I love gray and navy blue, but it depends on the doll's skin color, or the fabric that I'm using for her skin will determine to be what color eyes I want for that doll. But another thing affects it is the doll's personality. Like, some dolls, like, you have to pick the right color to bring out, like, her personality. So it may not be about what's aesthetic or what's proper. It may be about the color may be selected based on what message or what energy that doll is conveying to the world. So now I'm going to go ahead and paint the eyeshadow. I'm just using basic acrylic paint to paint the eyeshadow on Geraldine's eyes. And remember, I prepped the eyelids with gesso, so it's really nice and hard. Later, I changed my mind and I decided to add some more colors. But, when I think about it, I don't think it really mattered. But when I put the flower band around her hair, I just thought, she needs more color. But I like this. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, why did I change that? After I completely paint the eyelids, putting on the eyeshadow, I paint the inside of her eye. I let everything dry, and then I use my crystal coat glaze, and I pour it inside of the eye. Do one at a time so that you can angle the head so that the eye can hold the crystal coat glaze in place. And I use 3 layers. So I put on 1 layer, let it dry, and usually overnight. Then I wake up the next day and I'll put another layer, let it dry completely. It'll look very cloudy, and you'll start thinking like, oh my God, this isn't going to work. I'm going to sue these people. But guess what? It will dry clear. This crystal coat glaze, this is some really good stuff. Her eyes turned out amazingly well, and I'm not sure if my camera is catching how beautiful her eyes really are. In the next video, we're going to go over how to put her body together. I know there is a doll inside of you who is just dying to come to life, but only you can breathe life into her. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.